Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFH Chop Shop. This week we're putting GTI seats in my Camry. Now I know it's been a while, I've been flat out at work, so I apologise I haven't put a video up in the last couple of weeks. But we're back this week anyway. Hopefully I can get some more regular videos back up soon. So let's get into it. So I was hoping this would be here for Japan Day, but it was not. But it is here now. I've cut most of the tape. But I'll get into this and I'll show you what I got. So there should be a gear knob and a steering wheel in here for the Camry. Move the steering wheel out of the way. I'm going to get a coffee before I look at that. But so far, it's the right steering wheel, so that's good. And then this is cool. Factory Toyota part number. Supra 6-speed gear knob. In like grey, black leather. Let's put it on, and then I'm going to get coffee. So I thought I'd pull apart the wrapping, and there is a couple of pieces of newspaper. But unfortunately, there's no car adverts. Let's put this gear knob on. So first of all, this is what we're working with. It's just a Camry 5-speed gear knob. Don't need that. Instead, Toyota Supra 6-speed, and it is similar colour to the steering wheel and stitched. However, I'm going to a different steering wheel. So hopefully it's dark enough to get away with it and it doesn't look a bit weird. There we go. 6-speed. Nice stitched leather, brand new Toyota guy. Boop. It's going to be too short, I can see already. I can fix that. It's also very grey, but that's okay. There we go, so I just need to make a spacer up there to bring the boot up. And the shift pattern is correct for the 6-speed. How good. Alright, I'm back with coffee. The gear knob feels really good. Just need to make a little spacer for the boot to stay up. Now, let's have a look at this guy and rip this guy off. I've not snuck a peek at this or anything, so let's see. Hopefully it's as good as it looked in the photos. I need 2 hands. I need 3 hands, actually. Altezza, and it doesn't look sun faded to buggery, and stitching looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now it's a non cruise control version, so I'll need to get another local delivered IS200 steering wheel and take the back cover off, and then hopefully we can adapt the cruise control to suit. Also, I just realised it doesn't have an airbag in it. So they've taken the airbag out and shipped it, which is really annoying because instead of doing air freight, we did sea freight because it had an airbag in it. But it's not in there. Let's rip this one off, put that one on, see how it fits. So I got the old steering wheel off, the new steering wheel on. It fits on the splines. It's not bolted on, obviously. All feels pretty good. Now here's the back of the new steering wheel with no airbag, obviously, so there's an airbag in there but no charge. And here is the original Camry one. You guys seeing what I'm seeing? I wonder if that's the same size. That'd be way too easy, surely. Also, this steering wheel doesn't have any of the stuff to actually set the airbag off, so I'm wondering if Altezza's actually had airbags at all. Who knows? So I've had a bit of a play with the old steering wheel. So this is definitely an airbag. There's obviously the actual bag in there, and then that seems like an explosive. I took it apart and it won't come out because of the bag, so they are attached. However, there's not really anything on here that looks like it'll actually pull that apart. Like you could... So the center section there looks like it slides into this, but that's nowhere near. So I'm not really sure what actually sets this off. Moving to the new steering wheel, I've put the new steering wheel on, I've hooked none of the power wires up, and there's no airbag light. So unless we stuff that up in the conversion, I'm not 100% sure that was actually functioning. I don't know. I pulled the wiring out and grabbed the cruise control section off. This steering wheel doesn't actually have the like pop out plastic for cruise control, so I can't use that with this current section. So I need a Aussie delivered steering wheel so I can rob some bits off of it. But the new airbag, which does not actually have an airbag section like the explosive section, if I hook up the horn, it's constantly on, so I need to reverse the polarity there. Instead of being usually open, it needs to be usually closed, and we'll go from there. But that should be pretty simple, I would think. I've tightened it all down, so I just need to put this guy on there. That's a lot nicer, and it looks a little smaller. It might be on my, no, it is a fair bit smaller. So it's probably about an inch smaller, which is pretty good too. Just gives me a little bit more clearance to get in and out and to see. So that's much nicer. Alright, so that's all on. Got the original wheel all back together just in case I need to reference that later. Tools packed up. Let's go for a drive. So new knob. Still need to make that little spacer. And that's going to annoy me so much until I fix it, so that's probably a today job as well. But I'm much happier with the size of this, and also now the wheel will be straight because I've fixed that. I was putting it off with the old wheel because I knew this one was on its way, but now it should be straight and it's a better size and it feels better and it's better condition and it's just better. So overall pretty happy with that. Need to make a little spacer, but other than that, looks pretty good. And it being a little bit smaller, I really actually do enjoy that. So now when I go to do cruise control, I'm going to need all the back stuff, but other than that, it's good to go. I drove around the block, no airbag light, no nothing. Steering wheel feels nice, it is straight. So we're all done. So the first step to installing these new seats is to get rid of the old ones. So this is what we have at the moment. These are the original Vienta seats. They're pretty haggard. They're in a lot better condition than a lot of the ones I've seen, but that's what we're working with. So these are electric, and what we're going to be putting in is actually manual, but it has electric aspects, which I'll explain when we get to it. So I need to unbolt these and disconnect the wiring. So with those 4 bolts undone, one little plug, everything comes straight out. Now I'll jump to some footage from the other day and show you how I got these seat rails. So before I get too excited, these are the rails that I got. So I've got one for each side, and I stripped them down at the wreckers because this is as minimal as they come. Basically, this is as much as they unbolt. Everything is staked and is quite difficult. So what I need to do is cut these down. I'll take the seatbelt clicker off, cut these just in front of the bottom section of the actual mount, cut it through there. That'll drop this guy off. Then I can move the bottom half of the rail, which is the bit I need, all the way forwards, cut the back off, move it all the way back, and then some rollers fall out that look like this. And then we end up with just the 2 rails. So that's one for one side, and then there's the other one. So these bolt to the floor of the car, and I need to adapt these to the new seats. But conveniently, it has this section of the actual slide still there, and that's nice and flat and should be nice and parallel, I would imagine, because if it's not, then it wouldn't slide very well. So those 2 sections there, I should be able to adapt those pretty easily to the new seats. So I'll get to that in a minute, but I'll cut all this one down. Just wanted to show you before I cut it up. We'll get 4 of those things cracking, and then we can get on to actually putting the seats in the car. Okay, now that we're back, we can put these seat rails in place. So they will go bolted back into the factory locations as per the factory seat, and then we can start measuring to get the new seats in here. So we have the new seat rails bolted in, and now what we can do is work off of this. They're nice and square, and we can work off of this to make some bolt holes for the new seats. Enter Volkswagen seat, of course. If you guys have hung around on the channel for a while, you'll have seen me put these in at least 2 cars, and this will be the 3rd. So one thing I have noticed about this seat, this is out of a Mark 5 or Mark 6 Golf. The rails are actually off center to the center of the seat, which works out in my favor on the passenger side especially, because the Camry actually has this section here, which stops the seat sliding over any further, which is actually the way the Golf seats are offset. So you'll bolt it all up, it'll actually want to sit in further. So that works out really well. As for the driver's side, I don't know how that's going to work. Hopefully it works in our favour, but we don't really need to line the passenger seat up with anything as long as it's actually square. Doesn't need to be lined up with the steering wheel. So I'll start on the passenger side and then we'll work our way across and deal with other problems later. So I'll chuck this in and see how high it's all going to sit. So the next problem, ignore the angle of the backrest, that's just so it can sit in place, but the actual base is a lot higher than the other one. So I've sat in there and it feels pretty weird. Even if you recline the seat back, it just feels very high. So I'm gonna have to work out how to lower this at least an inch, which I think I can do. And then if that doesn't feel right, I'm gonna have to bail on this whole situation. So this is one of the seat rails from the other side. Now you can see it's got the actual rail part still on there from the original Camry seat. If I were to cut that front tab off and cut the back tab off, I could probably get myself 20 to 25 mil by removing just that section there, that U-shaped section. So that would give me a bit more room, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. So I think I might do that, chop out the main section of it, take out as much as I can, get this all sat back in here, and if that works I can then either bolt or weld that front tab and rear tab to the existing Golf seat rails, because these Golf seats are manual, whereas the original Camry seats are electric. So I'll go cut one of these up and see if I have wasted my time. So now I've gotten this rail down to the rear mount, which is in my hand, and the front mount, which is in the vise. So what I want to do is cut off this section here, try and get me that a little bit lower. So I'll do that on both rails, all 4 pieces, bolt them all back in the car, set the seat back in and see if it sits any better. So with a bit more chopping and grinding later, we've got the front mount, rear mount for both sides. So I'll chuck this Golf seat back in here and see if that sits a whole lot lower and see if this is viable at all. A little bit of creative engineering later and it's a whole lot lower. The front is still higher. I'm pretty sure the back is either the same level or a little bit lower, so I can probably get away with it. But what I've done is just cut those brackets off and then put the front and rear sections in. And then if I move this all the way back, there was actually a pin in the Camry bracket and managed to knock that out, and I can put a 8mm bolt straight through it. So that'll do for now. I will weld these at some point, but just for test fitting I've put a bolt in there. So that's got the pin on the bottom and everything actually works out pretty good. Onto the back, which is going to be pretty tricky. Now with these back brackets I thought this was going to be super difficult, but we actually have all of these holes here from the bottom of the Golf. Obviously they're not intended for mounting the seat, but it's not the end of the world. So what I'm thinking is I'll just drill a hole and put a bolt through that for now, and then I can weld that bracket from the Camry to the bottom of the seat rail. And then same on the other side, they line up with the existing brackets, so that's super easy. So another bit of luck. So the original Camry brackets actually had another pin, which I'd already ground the top off of, so I just knocked the bottom out and put the bolts through. This one's a little wonky, so I'll have to fix that when I go to weld it all. This one's all lined up, so I think I'll jump back in, see if we can adjust this nicely and see if it feels correct. So that actually fits pretty well. It's definitely a little bit higher, but it's only at the front, so I don't know if that's going to be annoying in the driver's seat, but as a passenger it doesn't really matter. It goes very low and it also goes super high, which if you go all the way up and all the way in, I can't actually get in. So it's pretty tall, a lot of adjustment on these seats, which is nice. That's not even all the way back, which is even better. And what's even nicer again, that just clips into the factory Volkswagen seatbelt buckle. So I'll just have to do a little bit of wiring on that side to get it to recognize the seat and stuff. But overall, that's pretty excellent. So a little bit of wiring and then weld these brackets up and all that sort of stuff, and then copy the same thing onto the other side. It's actually a lot more work than it sounds like. So just to show you quickly on the other seat rails where I'm bolted through, that little rivet there, that's one of the bolt holes. There's a rivet there, which is actually a post, which is where I put the other bolt at the front. And then the other side, we've got the front one, which is a bit of a pin, and then the back one, just another rivet. So that was actually super convenient, and they actually line up really well. Let's do some wiring. So here is the wiring underneath the seat. I have de-pinned it and de-loomed it. That's why it looks a bit daunting. Now all I've worked out so far is that the brown one is the earth for everything, and this black with the red trace, or red with the black trace, is for the side controls, which are the lumbar, and I'm not sure what the other one does. I think it's the top half of the lumbar, like the back support. So they're the only two I'm going to wire in for now. I'd like to wire in long term the heated seats, which is about 5 wires, but something's not adding up with all of that, so I'm just going to put it aside for now. I think it's all CAN related, so that makes it a bit tricky. The airbag doesn't need to be plugged in because there is no airbag on this side of the car, and I've also disconnected the wiring for the seatbelt because there's no seatbelt indicator on this side either. So I'll just tap into these 2 wires here. The rest of this can get zip tied out of the way, and then I'll put it back onto the factory Camry wiring, which I will replace with a Deutsch plug, and this thing can get bolted in and I can start on the other side. So before we wire this in permanently, I just want to make sure I get the polarity around the right way. So if I just hold these two to the wires coming out of the floor, we get 12 volt. Just got to make sure that I get it around the right way. Now, so there we go, that's 12 volt, and we have the blue one on the red and the white and black one on the black, which is what I expected. So now we can wire that into these 2 terminals, which are for the seat power. Easy peasy, it's all wired up. So I'll clean this up obviously, and I need to weld the brackets, but I'll bolt this seat back in and we'll make sure all the electrics work, other than the heated seat, which I haven't wired up, and then make sure it all bolts in nicely. Then we should be good to go to pull it apart, weld everything up, finish it all off properly, and then bolt it in for the final time. So I'm reasonably happy with that placement. Everything seems to fit pretty well. Obviously need to pull it apart and finish it off properly, but everything seems to work quite well. That can go upstairs once I'm done, and I'm happy with the passenger seat. So I'll cut up these brackets and get it ready for tomorrow, and I'll get the other side in and finished. So it's a new day. I'm pretty happy with the mock-up of that seat. So now what I'll do is rip this one out, see if I can get the driver's side mounted up, make sure it's all square with the steering wheel, everything feels nice and right and I'm happy with it. And then I can finish off the mounts and get these things bolted in for good. So I'll rip this guy out and we'll get started. So with the seat out, I jumped into the wiring. Now this side has 4 wires, 2 are for the seatbelt clicker, and then the other 2 are for the power for the original seat. So I'm going to use the original Camry seatbelt receptacle thing. Even though the Golf one does work, I've cut it off of the driver's seat and drilled a hole already in a previous installation of these guys. So I'll put the Camry one onto the new Golf seats. Can put all this in, make sure it all works, and then I can get these brackets in the right spot, bolt it all together, and see if it fits nicely. So it bolts in nicely. It does sit a little bit off center to the steering wheel, which is probably going to annoy me, but I'm going to leave it for now and see if I can deal with it. I'm going to bolt all this in and vacuum and everything, get everything tidied up. I'm not going to weld these in place just yet. Just bolt everything down nice and tight and then take it for a bit of a test drive, and then in a day or two when I've decided that I like the location, I will weld them in place. So I'll clean all this floor, I'll get the seatbelt bolted back up and all that stuff, and we'll be back in just a moment. Alright, that was a lot of messing around, but they're all bolted back together. All the carpet's all clean and vacuumed, and I've got like my 500 layers of carpet back in there. I think they look pretty good. Ties in nicely with the steering wheel and the gear knob. The seatbelt clickers are in there, and they're all bolted up with the original bolts and everything. So it's all nice and strong. These carpets are filthy. If you have a good set of Camry carpets for some reason, sell them to me, please. But all the lumbar works, and it can slide back and forwards, up and down works. I just don't have the electric heated seats because they run through CAN, and it's a bit tricky. So we may get that later, but for now that's going to have to do. But I think they look pretty good. Super comfy. They are a little bit higher, which I don't love, and they do lean back a whole lot more, which I don't also love, but they're still comfy and they still feel good. So that's pretty much it. So that's all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed the install of these GTI seats into the 4th car. So the GTI they originally came from, the Hilux I had, the Getz I had, and now the Camry. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.